Good morning. How's everybody doing? All right. This is the time and place for the planning hearing officer hearing for September 14, 2022. My name is Chris Bagdikian, and I will be conducting the hearing as hearing officer today. Due to the COVID-19 novel coronavirus and health recommendations from the Los Angeles County Health Department, this hearing is being conducted both in person as well as virtually from remote locations. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing, and those that are present here are present and can participate in the hearing. The planning hearing officer meeting is being broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable, Channel 6, and AT&T Universe, Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition HD on the city's webpage at glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/MyGlendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing anytime at glendaleca.gov/agendas. For public comments and questions during the meeting, for those wishing to participate remotely, please call 818-937-8100. And for those participating in person, please fill out a speaker card available against the back wall of this room. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. We have one case on this agenda involving a discretionary permit application. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will read the description of the application and the request. I will read the reports received from other city departments and other letters or communications from interested parties. The case planner will make a brief overview of the case, give analysis, and make a recommendation. The applicant will then be connected either by telephone or in person, stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time limit. Others in support or in opposition of the application and interested parties will be connected by telephone or in person to give comments, again clearly stating both name and address, and will be allowed a 3-minute time limit to speak. Lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing comments, if desired, in response to testimonies given by preceding speakers within a 5-minute time limit. The hearing will be closed and the case will be taken under submission. Findings. If the evidence presented in the application and at the hearing meets the required findings set forth in the Glendale Municipal Code, then the project can either be approved or approved with conditions. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Decision. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses and have provided their name and mailing addresses and emails. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Records of decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division website. Appeals. Under the appeal provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal must contact the case planner to obtain forms and information regarding the appeal process and submittal. Public notice. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners and occupants located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper. I would like to also inform everyone that the official proceedings of the planning hearing officer's hearing are being televised live and may be viewed online on the city's website. Coming to the actual case that's on today's agenda. The item for today's discussion is located at 2960 St. Gregory Road. It's variance case number PVAR 2002984. The project description is: the applicant is requesting approval of an addition to an existing 1,876 square foot single-family house, single story, without providing the minimum number of code-required parking spaces and meeting the minimum interior setback. After construction of the proposed addition, the residence will be a total of 4,149 square feet and required a third car garage and the minimum 5-foot interior setback. The property is located in the R1R zone, floor area ratio district 2, and described as lot 6, tract 9700, assessor parcel number 5660-020-001. The existing 2-car garage is proposed to be maintained, and a portion of the existing residence provides a 3.5-foot setback. With respect to environmental determination, the project is exempt from CEQA review as a Class 3 new construction or conversion of small structures exemption pursuant to Section 15303, repeat, 15303 of the state CEQA guidelines, because the proposal is an addition to an existing single-family residence. I'm going to go over now the comments received from other departments. We received comments from the city's urban forestry division, and their comment is that the indigenous trees will require some minor pruning, and generally the forestry division is okay with the proposal. The Housing Division didn't have any comments. The Facilities Division didn't have any comments. Actually, Integrated Waste didn't have any comments. The Police Department had no comments on this. Another response from the Housing Division, no comment. Public Works Engineering had no comment. Glendale Water and Power had no comment. Again, another response from Integrated Waste, no comment. And I don't see any other comments from cities divisions in the file. The public comments that we received an email from Ms. Jeanette Solano expressing concerns regarding the variance requests. There are several other email messages from Ms. Jeanette Solano questioning the project and requesting clarifications. There's another email correspondence from next door neighbors and from Ms. Jeanette and Narcisco Reedy Solano. There's email correspondence from a Claire Morrissey expressing concerns about the project. Email correspondence from Chris Howdy, again expressing concerns about the project. Another email message from Narisco Solano, expressing concerns about the project. Another email from Rory Solano, again expressing concerns about the project. An email message from Mr. Gremmew, on behalf of the Chevy Chase Estates Association, expressing concerns about the project. We received a letter from the Glendale Historical Society, a letter sent from Elizabeth Pulcinelli, expressing concerns about the project. Another email message from Ms. Jeanette Solano, and that's all the correspondence I have. As a reminder, this case was heard in 2020, at which time concerns were raised regarding some unpermitted construction crossing over property lines, and some other issues, at which time the case was tabled and new noticing was required. So at that time, correspondence was also sent and there was testimony. I'm not going to go through those since the case has been renoticed. So we're going to go through the new items. Having gone through this, I'd like to turn it over to the case planner, Mr. Roger Kiesel, to do a brief presentation of the case, the application requests, and then we'll move on to the public hearing part, public testimony part. So Roger, the floor is yours.
Right. Good morning, Mr. Begdikian. The applicant is requesting approval of a 925 square foot first floor addition and a new 1,348 square foot second story to an existing 1,876 square foot single story, single family residence located at 2960 St. Gregory Road. The first floor addition will be located at the rear south side of the existing residence. The second floor is proposed above both a portion of the existing residence as well as the addition to the first floor. After the proposed construction, the residence will be a total of 4,149 square feet in area. The existing residence is 18 feet 2 inches in height. After the addition with the second story, the residence will be 29 feet 2 inches in height. The residence is located on an 11,821 square foot lot on the south side of St. Gregory between Hollywell Place and Cornwall Drive. The lot is located in an R1R zone with floor area ratio district 2. This is basically the location map. The subject property is highlighted in red. And let me just go over the variance requests. Dwelling units in the R1R zone with floor area between 3,500 and 5,999 square feet require 3 covered and enclosed parking spaces. In addition to the house, the subject site also includes a 20 by 20 foot garage. As mentioned previously, after the proposed addition, the house will be 4,949 square feet and therefore will require 1 additional covered and enclosed parking space. The applicant is requesting approval of a variance to allow this addition to occur without providing the 3rd covered and enclosed parking space. And the PowerPoint I have up, the site plan, the garage is shown in a green outline. So that's where one of the variance requests is occurring in this area. The city zoning code also prescribes that buildings permitted prior to May 2nd, 1991 shall be set back from the interior property lines not less than 5 feet for buildings over 20 feet in height and less than 30 feet in height. As mentioned previously, the existing residence is going from a height of roughly 18 feet to a height of roughly 29 feet, and thus requires this minimum 5-foot interior setback. The new portions, the additions of the proposed residence do comply with the 5-foot setback. The applicant is requesting approval of a variance to allow an approximately 6 square foot portion of the existing residence to be less than the minimum required 5-foot and maintain the approximately a minimum 3-foot 6-inch interior setback. And that is shown on the site plan. In this circular area, there's a small triangular portion of the existing house that is between roughly 3'6" and 5 feet from the interior property line. The garage is just outlined here for reference. Staff is recommending denial of the garage variance and approval of the proposed setback variance. As you may recall, the proposed variance was originally heard by you in October of 2020. The case was continued pending some clarification issues. I'm thinking before I go over those issues, let me run through my PowerPoint just to give everybody a sort of overview of what's on the site and what's being proposed. So this is the site plan. St. Gregory is the circular street running here. The house is roughly in this location. The first floor addition is outlined in green here. And again, the red circle or oval is the area of the house that is within the 5-foot setback. The second floor addition, I circled the large red oval, is basically the change that I will go over later to the second floor plan to address the indigenous trees on the adjacent parcel. North elevation, this is basically the front elevation, or the elevation where the front doors are. So north, the south elevation, the east elevation, which faces an adjacent property owner. And this is sort of the carve out where the deck is now, that previously it was a floor area. This is the west elevation. This basically faces St. Gregory. This site plan I will go over with you later. Photo of the driveway, basically taken from St. Gregory Road, looking up at the driveway, and you can see a little bit of the garage. There's a direct shot of the garage there. And to the right, there's steps going up, and then there's a gate that goes up to the front yard and front entrance of the residence. This steps here, and then you turn left, and there's a gate here, and there's steps that go up here. Photo of the front of the house. You see this. You don't see the steps, but the steps are right here. The front door is right here. This is one of the bedrooms of the house, and this area here that I'm highlighting is within the 5-foot setback. This is the rear of the house. And I won't go into that right now. So as I mentioned, there were some clarification issues brought up in the last hearing. The first was whether all the structures on the site were reflected on the site plan and are proposed to remain or be removed. So during the previous hearing, there were some confusion regarding construction occurring on the subject site without proper permitting, which included boundary line fencing, as well as a trellis retaining wall. And that was also associated with an indigenous tree permit. The applicant has worked with Building and Safety to address these concerns, and these permits either have been extended and finalized, like the retaining wall, or determined not to be required, like the boundary line fence. And those are shown on the property, the eastern property line on the site plan of the plans. The second clarification was whether there was construction at or crossing the property lines. Initially, there was a 1-foot high, approximately, stacked stone wall that crossed the property lines, and that was stated in the staff report. This portion of the wall on the subject property has been removed and replaced by a taller stucco-faced wall. And this site plan shows the area of that. It was basically this area here where there was a small stacked stone wall, and it sort of bled over onto the other property, the adjacent property. It's my understanding that that stacked stone wall is still there on the adjacent property, but it has been replaced on the subject property with a stucco-faced wall. So, and then there's a gate wall that was cited in the staff report as crossing the property line. That actually doesn't cross the property line. It's on the subject property that connects with the boundary line fence that was relatively newly installed. And that gate wall is located right here. The green outline is basically the drip line of the nearby indigenous trees on the adjacent property. With regard to the location of oak trees on and off site, the second floor plan, as I sort of alluded to before, has been revised from the initial submittal to be more considerate of the drip lines of the nearby off-site oak trees. This revision is supported, as you mentioned, by the Urban Forestry Division. And again, this is the green is the outline of drip line. And let me go back and more fully describe what the major revision was. This is the second floor plan. The previous hearing, there was actually floor area in this location. It may have been a bathroom. I can't quite remember, but it was actually floor area. The second floor plan has been adjusted in its entirety, and that area that was floor area is now a deck. So there is less intrusion of the drip line of oak trees. So that was the change there. And you can see that on the east elevation. This area here is open, and there's a railing right here. Finally, findings for the hillside development review policy that were omitted in the previous staff report are contained in the staff report. I won't go over them here, but they are in the staff report. Would you like me to go over the findings of each, or just summarize, or how do you want me to handle the?
If you would just summarize them.
Okay.
Because there are two components to the variance. One is the garage, the other one is the setback. Just a couple of words about each one,
Okay.
please.
All right.
Yeah.
So let me go back. The site plan. There were two variance requests. One for the not providing the third car garage. One for which is outlined in red, or I'm sorry, green. And the second variance request was to maintain, basically to maintain a 3.5 foot setback when a 5 foot setback would be required. Staff is supporting the setback variance and is not supporting the garage variance. Staff does concur that it would be very difficult to extend, make bigger, or build a new garage on the site based on existing development. There are stairs, and a house begins on the south side. There's a pool on the north. There's topography and protected trees, sort of the north side, and it would be west side. So staff isn't questioning that. We do think the extent of the square footage, the amount of square footage that is being requested to be added is really excessive. In the staff report, basically, the applicant could almost double the size of the house without providing that third car garage, third car bay. And that's really more our contention. We don't have any issue with not being practically able to add on to the garage. With regards to the setback variance, the house hasn't been modified in that location, so for approximately 60 years, that sort of snippet, that little triangular portion of the house, has been set back at 3 feet 6 inches. Basically, setbacks are desired for light and privacy and those sorts of issues. The house has been that way since it was developed. The new part of the house is complying with the minimum required 5-foot setback. So staff is supportive of that portion of the variance request. Let's see if there's anything else I can highlight. Maybe I'll stop there because the crux of the arguments were the two that I just noted, and just sum up by saying that staff is recommending that the planning hearing officer deny the variance to allow the expansion above 3,500 square feet without providing a third-car garage. But we're recommending approval of the variance to maintain the 3-foot 6-inch interior setback instead of requiring the minimum 5-foot setback for the existing house. The new house is set back 5 feet, and that's what it should be set back. The variance is not for the 3-foot. The variance is not for the new part of the house, the new proposed part of the house, to be closer than 5 feet to the property line. Hopefully that clarified that. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kiesel. Let's move on to the public portion.
Just to let you know, sorry, we have 4 people, 4 callers, as well as the people in the audience.
So we have 4 callers. The project applicant that filled out a speaker card. Plus 5 speaker cards. Okay, so the public hearing is open. I'd like to call on Mr. Crosby Hafner, project applicant, to come forward and speak.
Mr. Roger, should I go here for?
Is the mic on? Touch the mic. How about this one? How about the one in front of the podium?
That's on.
Oh, it is on. It's hard for me to tell from here. I'm hearing you. Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to just go there, that's fine. Okay, I've queued up your PowerPoint, if that's what you want.
Yes, it is. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So, good morning. My name is Crosby Hafner. I'm the homeowner and the applicant.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
How long?
You have 15 minutes, Mr. Crosby.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bakhtikian. And thanks to Roger and to Kristen and to the other staff who prepared this meeting. My comments will focus on the parking variance, and then I can address the setback variance afterwards if it's needed. So there's 4 required findings of fact. This is the first one, that the application of the provision to the parking ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship. This is the site plan, or a portion of the site plan. And just to make it easier to read, this is the house, the existing house. These are all the deck areas. The deck areas and the house are all on the same level, the 1-story house. This is the pool. This is the landscaped area of the planters. This is St. Gregory Road. This is the driveway up to the garage. And these are the stairs that lead from the driveway level up to the deck and house level. The existing garage is underneath this deck. So it's, so the driveway is about 9 or 10 feet below the deck level. So the first thing that that we did, actually, there is a couple of other things. So these are protected oak trees. There's one here. There's one here outside the garage. There's actually a larger one there. There's one here, and here, and here. So these are not all of the protected trees on the property, but they are the ones that are on this portion of the property, kind of around the pool and the garage. So the first thing that Roger and I and my architect and structural engineer looked at was, is it possible to expand the garage? Maybe hard to see on this topographical map, but the driveway level is 30 feet above St. Gregory Road, which means that the house and the deck level is 40 feet above the St. Gregory Road. So, all of these trees that we're looking at are hillside trees, and it's a pretty substantial drop. This is one place where theoretically you could put a garage, extension to the garage, but this would require cantilevering the garage over the roadway. It also would require extending the driveway in this way, also cantilevered over the roadway. And those things are both infeasible, but also we'd end up losing 3 of the protected trees, 3 of the 6. This configuration is, if anything, it's worse. It requires an even more cantilevered and infeasible driveway extension. It also would kill 3 of the 6 trees. This doesn't make it any better. You still have to get around to the existing garage, and you still would kill the trees. Putting it to the south isn't any better. It requires demoing the stairs that lead from the driveway level up to the house level. Also, it requires figuring out how to change the entrance to the house, and it would require digging into the hillside and constructing under an existing house and under the existing deck. Putting the extension here would require demoing the pool. We'd also lose 2 of the 6 trees. So this is how we came to the conclusion that the garage at 2960 cannot be expanded, and that applying the parking ordinance results in practical difficulties and hardship. The second fact is exceptional circumstances or conditions that don't generally apply to other property in the same zone or neighborhood. So this is the zoning map that was submitted as part of the application itself. The purple boundary is a 500-foot boundary. This shows all the properties that were noticed of the variance application and of this hearing. We just cleared out so you can see the roadways a little bit easier. The subject property, 2960, is right there in the center in blue. This is St. Gregory Road. This is Chevy Chase. This is Cornwall and Greenwich, a couple of nearby roads, and Hollywell. This is Golf Club Drive. So there's really, Hillside hillside properties, because of their configuration and especially in this area, the eclectic nature of the homes, they tend to all be unique, but I'll focus on two exceptional aspects of 2960. The first is that there's a long and straight driveway that's more than 80 feet long. The second is that, as we just saw, the garage cannot be expanded. If you look at the properties in this neighborhood, these are the properties that do not have driveways where you can park a car behind the 15-foot front setback. These are properties where you have a garage that can be expanded. This is, these are vacant or municipal or new construction lots. Finding that these two characteristics together, both a long and straight driveway and a garage that can't be expanded, they're really unique. Sometimes there's long driveways, but they typically end in a larger flat pad that could accommodate an additional covered parking space. And there are garages that can't be expanded, but they normally have very short or non-existent driveways. Having those two together, 2960 is really the only property in this neighborhood that has these two characteristics. On this driveway, you can park 5 cars in the driveway, 4 of which are behind the 15-foot setback. This is a picture on the left of the driveway. Picture on the right is of the driveway with 5 cars in it. 4 of them are about 30 feet behind the roadway, but behind the 15-foot setback. These are examples from the neighborhood of driveways that are too short to park cars. I mean, just too short to park cars at all, even though people like to park cars in their driveway. These are examples from the neighborhood of driveways that are, they're big enough to park a car, but they're not big enough to park cars behind a 15-foot setback. So yeah, the exceptional characteristics of 2960 that are relevant to parking or off-street parking is the combination of its long and straight driveway, capable of parking up to 5 cars, which is in addition to the 2-car garage, which cannot be expanded. No other properties in the neighborhood share these characteristics. Third fact is that the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or to the neighborhood. So for this, we go back to the this neighborhood plan, and we really look at what are the parking conditions in this neighborhood generally. So there is a curve right at the northern end of St. Gregory, adjacent to the property, kind of below the pool, there's no parking on either side of the street. These are streets on this map that have parking on one side of the street, and that's really the most common condition for hillside roads that are a little windy. They tend to be a little bit narrower. Most of them in the city of Glendale tend to have parking on one side of the street. That's actually not the case for most of St. Gregory. So St. Gregory has this portion of one-sided parking and this portion where there's no parking. But on the northern section and on the southern section, there's parking on both sides of the street. That also is true of Hollywell. There's also, you can see there's a portion of St. Gregory in the southern portion of St. Gregory where the road becomes quite wide. It becomes almost as wide as Chevy Chase. It becomes so wide that that there's actually head-in street parking on St. Gregory, and this portion of St. Gregory. It's very unusual to see that on a hillside road. There's another unusual thing, which is starting at 2960, the road is so wide on this southern section that there's actually sidewalks. The sidewalk continues all the way along Hollywell and on both sides of the street on St. Gregory at that very southern section. Uncommon for hillside roads to have parking on both sides. even more uncommon for hillside roads to have sidewalks.
Mr. Hafner, you've got 5 more minutes.
Okay. Chevy Chase has sidewalks on both sides, but even those sidewalks, they're only south of St. Gregory. They don't continue to the north of St. Gregory. These are properties that are supported by street parking in southern St. Gregory. There's 9 of them. These Hollywell properties really look to Hollywell, where there's plenty of parking because there's only 3 houses on that southern side. This is a vacant lot. This southern portion of St. Gregory serves 9 homes. It's got almost 1,300 feet of curb length, 143 feet of street parking per home. That's larger than Greenwich and Hollywell, which are representative hillside roads in the area. It's even more parking per home than on a representative portion of Chevy Chase. This is the view from 2960 where the sidewalk begins, looking south. Looking south. This is the end. You can see here somebody parking in his driveway, even though there's plenty of street parking. This is the beginning of Hollywell. You can see the sidewalk on the left and the beginning of undeveloped land on the right. This is the area where there's head-in parking on the extra wide portion of St. Gregory. That is again. This is a construction lot. You can see the driveway for 2960 in the distance, and also the beginning of the sidewalk outside of 2960 on the right. This is part of the one-sided parking area on St. Gregory, just south of the 2960 driveway. This is the no parking zone. This is back to the one-sided street parking. This is similar to Cornwall, typical hillside road with only one side of street parking, and then back to the St. Gregory with 2 sides of parking. These are 3 large lots with ample off-street parking. These are cul-de-sac properties, that enjoy all of that parking with sidewalks at the very end. These are my neighbors across the street, Vlad Savardian and Michael McGinnis. They have limited off-street parking, and they are right in this area of St. Gregory. They're in the best position to comment on the parking for this portion of St. Gregory. Mike McGinnis has lived here for decades. This is the letter he submitted to this hearing. He's familiar with the parking. He says from personal experience, there's plenty of parking day and night. He has been engaged in the construction of his new home for the last several years. His workers always have room to park. In particular, the side opposite of my home is only lightly used for parking. Vic across the street says the same thing. He has rarely, if ever, seen situations where all the street parking near my house is taken. Adjacent to Crosby's house, the parking is typically vacant. He's seen the driveway used for parking regularly. So there's plenty of parking so that this variance is not detrimental to the public welfare. Last fact is granting the variance is not contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. With the 2-car garage and the long driveway, 2960 provides more than 200% of the off-street parking required under Glendale Code. And this portion of St. Gregory has more street parking per house than many of the other Glendale streets. So granting the variance does not impair the availability of street parking. As Roger noted, there's a staff recommendation says that it's that denying the variance itself is not a hardship because a house of 3,500 square feet is big enough. The same staff report also notes that house sizes in the neighborhood range up to 5,200 square feet. This would make the proposed expanded house in the 78th percentile of home sizes. I'm only asking to build a house that is otherwise allowed under the Glendale Code. And again, the parking requirement, the intent of the intent of the ordinance is fulfilled because up to 7 cars can be parked on the property. So again, I'm just asking that this property be allowed the parking variance so it enjoys the same privileges of expansion that's otherwise allowable under the Glendale Code.
Okay.
Is this all? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hefner. We still have the 4 callers on hold.
We have 5 now.
5 now. Since the audience in this room is here already, let's hear from the audience, and then we can move on to the callers, because there could be more in the meantime. So next, Leo Sarageta, if you would like to come forward, and then followed by Narisco Solano.
Where do I go?
You can use the microphone there. Just
How
make
much
sure.
time?
I'm sorry?
How much time?
You have 3 minutes to speak, but make sure you hit, is there a button on that microphone to turn on?
I don't know.
That's the slide
Oh,
remote.
Hello? I don't know. It doesn't, it looks like. Yeah. Right, thanks.
The microphone here isn't working in the middle.
That's what they were checking on. They're fine with people sitting there.
Okay. Do we have a button on that to push, to turn on the
I
microphone?
think it's on now.
It's on? Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Sarageta, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, good morning. Thanks for allowing me to speak here. I reside at 3055 Hollywell Place. It's the street that goes into St. Gregory Road. Across from my home at 3060, they started building a new home 7 years ago. 7 years ago. 2 weeks ago, the city gave them the final permit. And the next day, the contractors arrived to continue building and remodeling the home after the city has inspected the premises. God knows what else they've built. On Chevy Chase, north of the fire department, there's a home that has been under construction for over 8 years. There's another home on our street that the gentleman just talked about that's on St. Gregory that's been in construction for 2 years. There are 23 homes on Hollywell and St. Gregory that must pass by 2960. There is no other way out. It's a St. Gregory, it's a very winding and narrow street. The site with the proposed construction, the street measures approximately 22 feet in width, with parking allowed at the curbs. To have construction there for years and years and years is ludicrous and dangerous. All of us will be at risk. Emergencies come up with health issues, the fire department trying to get through with the paramedics. The board should visit this site. In my opinion, it's cluttered in the front with pipes and debris, and construction has been going on and off for years with no regard or consideration, in my opinion, for the homeowners. These construction projects that were going on for years with containers on the street with rocks and dirt and debris partially blocking St. Gregory Road, making it very difficult for us to go in and out, to pass by there. To add 2,273 square feet to an existing home on top of this hill is insane. That's the size of an average home here on the area. It cannot happen. The board will be responsible for any accident or catastrophes related because of delays that we cannot get through the street here with the construction going on. Everyone has a right to build their dream house. But at the expense of 23 families that use St. Gregory to go in and out, it is the only exit.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saragueta. Next speaker is Narisco Solano, followed by Dr. Jeanette Reedy Solano.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Narciso Solano. I live at 2974 St. Gregory Road. I'm here to speak just about the concern about the parking space in St. Gregory. What Mr. Harbner did not include is the situation with new restaurant on Chevy Chase, Wild Oak. Now the parking overflows on St. Gregory and it brings cars all the way, almost all the way to the top. And that makes it difficult for residents actually to drive through or either find a parking space in that area. Second thing is, I would imagine that the new addition is to bring more people into the house. I don't know, but that's my intuition. And that will require more space, more parking space. As it is right now, an average of 3 to 5 cars parked in the driveway, leaving a space between the cars and the wall about 2 feet average. And that makes it difficult for any emergency, such as paramedics, firefighters, to get to the house. We live in a brush fire area, and any emergency will be very difficult to get to that through the driveway. So I strongly oppose to that. And the second thing would be the variance for the 3.5 house. Most of the houses that I know that have been filed for renovation, the city asked them to build the houses up to code. I think this is an opportunity for the homeowner 2960 to bring the house to code instead of 3.5 feet to make it 5 feet, which is the right thing to do. We already have several disputes on property line between that property and our property because he doesn't have enough space on that area. And that's all I can say.
Thank you, Mr. Solano. Next is Dr. Jeanette Reedy Solano, and followed by Graham Whiffler.
Dr. Solano, you realize that the boards are now, we need to keep them? They're public record?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, all right.
Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely.
Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Jeanette Reedy Solano, and I'm Hafner's next-door neighbor residing at 2974 St. Gregory Road. My family has lived in this home since 1979, and Narciso and I purchased it from them in 2010. We lived in peace for 27 years without a need for a fence until Crosby Hafner purchased the home next door in 2006. Our reasons to deny: we request both variances are unreasonable and, if granted, are detrimental to the flora, the fauna, and the humans who reside on St. Gregory. Our reason to deny can be summed up with the 4 Ps: public safety, privacy, past actions, and policy. First issue, public safety. Allowing construction without adding new parking will result in more cars being parked on the street and endanger public safety. We only have, it was a little misleading, we only have 2 homes that have a sidewalk in front of them on St. Gregory itself. The rest, pedestrians must walk in the street. So the more cars forces them into the center of the street, making it more dangerous. Privacy, issue number 2, regarding the setback issues. I urge the city not to grant a variance exception to Hafner's current bedroom built-in setback. Mr. Kiesel wrote that it has not been a problem for the past years with his neighbors, and nothing could be further from the truth. The nearness is a problem, and I would be happy to elaborate. Adjusting 6 feet when you are adding on 925 feet to the bottom floor of the home is not an unnecessary hardship, it's a footnote. Many citizens are forced to bring things up to codes when they do a remodel, and I beseech you to hold Hafner to the same standard. Furthermore, new construction is now 10 feet from the property line, and this being grandfathered in 5 feet, we also question. The third reason, the third P, past actions. I recognize that this hearing is not concerned with moral character nor actions that harm others or animals, and you're concerned with codes. However, there is one area where character should matter, and that concerns willful deception of the city and clear and repeated disregard for hillside developmental policy, planning codes, and building and safety protocols. Hafner has a long record and a documented history of building with expired permits, not allowing inspections, and most critically, building beyond what is on the plans. He most recently did this last year, damaging trees and land. And all the visuals I brought here are just showing recent destruction of oak trees and building beyond what he had on the plan. This demonstrates a pattern of action and should impact city decisions. These images are just a small portion of what he's done. The fourth and final reason, proposed construction disregards hillside developmental policy. Not only is this construction detrimental to our family, our property, and our neighborhood, it's also at odds with Glendale's hillside developmental policy. If you allow me to elaborate later, I can just tell you right now, A, C, and D are three of the points where it's in violation. Incompatibility of size of the home, alteration of terrain. He has taken out 500 cubic yards of soil and granite with no oversight from the city. It was granted an exception. Trees. Time's up. Can I just conclude? To conclude?
Just
Thank
wrap
you.
it up,
Thank you.
wrap it
Just
up, please.
real quick, to conclude, I ask you to deny both variances due to 4 Ps. Matter of public safety, without a 3-car garage, the resulting parking situation would be dangerous. Second point, privacy. A 29-foot structure with 5 feet from your neighbor erodes privacy. Third, past actions constitute deceptive and destructive pattern. And fourth, policy. From the staggering size, I have the comps available to you. The average home built in the 1960s is 2,200 square feet on our street. The majority are built in the 1960s. And Hafner has repeatedly disregarded many issues with the Glendale Hillside Development Policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You understand that these boards will be part of the file, and we have to hold on to them.
I would love for you to see the destruction of the oak trees and things that have happened recently in the construction of the latest border wall. I would love for you to
Thank
see
you, Ms. Solano.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Graham Whiffler, followed by Steve Hogren.
Good morning. I'm Graham Whiffler. I live at 3235 Cornwall Drive, Glendale. I am the president of the Chevy Chase Estates Association. We are the oldest association of homeowners in California. And one of our missions is to protect and to preserve. And I'm here to protect. And I'm also here, it's very unusual for our homeowners association to come and agree with staff. But we completely agree with staff that the variance should be denied on the on not having a third garage. I've driven St. Gregory a lot, and it is a very narrow, winding road. It is so narrow and winding that, as the applicant has shown on his own map, parts of it are, there's no parking, and a good portion of it is one side of the street. The reason that's done is so fire engines can get through. It is a public safety issue. There is a reason for the codes. They're not arbitrary. And to increase the amount of parking in an area where there is no parking it's vexing for neighbors, and it's also dangerous in case emergency vehicles have to get through. The applicant's problem is that he says it's impossible to build a third garage. Everything is possible, but it can be expensive. What the applicant's asking is to ignore code so that they can save money. But the saving could come at public safety. And I ask you to consider the public safety. And again, we agree with staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whiffler. Next speaker is Steve Hogren.
Yes, hi, my name is Steve Hogren. I'm a longtime retired Glendale teacher, and I worked in Glendale as a teacher for 23 years, and I also lived at the 2974 residence in the late 1980s and early 1990s. So I do see a little bit of a contrast between the street St. Gregory now and what it was back when I was living there. I'm speaking against the variance being granted due to a similar issue to the previous speaker. I'm concerned about street safety in relation to parking. What's happened in recent decades, actually in the last few years, is they've taken away about 5 parking spots on St. Gregory, and they've made them red zone parking. I think it's to do with public safety with the fire department and so forth. So they've reduced the number of parking on Glendale already, and I'm concerned about a project of the scope of this square footage, actually it requiring too much parking, and street parking for that matter. I know that the resident testified that they can park them all in the driveway, but if somebody else moves in there with a lot of residents, a lot of cars, they're going to need street parking, and that's going to be a public safety, a street safety issue having to do with vehicles and so forth, and finding parking is going to be a real strain. So I would ask to stick to the rules. The rules are there for a reason. There's required parking for a project of this scope, and I think they should stick with that and not grant the variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hogren. So now let's move on to the speakers remotely.
Mr. Heidecker, hi, you're on the air. Can you hear me?
Hello, thank you.
Thank you for your patience. You've got 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm just calling in to show my support for the fellow neighbors, the Solanos, who live right next door to Mr. Hafner. I live 2 doors down. I've reviewed their issues with the project. Jeanette's put together a very thorough, very well-researched analysis of it, and concur and agree with her and everybody else that's spoken against this project. I think it would be incredibly disruptive to our neighborhood, not just the parking and the safety, but just the general well-being and privacy of the neighborhood. I think you should follow the code and deny the variances. I found it curious that we didn't hear anything from the Glendale Fire Department on the issue. I think that's a major concern. I hope you take Jeanette's materials and past behavior into consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Parker, can you hear me? You're on the air with the planning hearing officer. Ms. Parker? Ms. Parker, can you hear me? All right, I'm going to put you on hold and go to the next speaker. Ms. Smith, you're on the air with the planning hearing officer. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure, thank you for your patience. You've got 3 minutes.
Of course, thank you. I may ask for 30 seconds more at the end, and I understand staff has a slide that I provided, so I'll let you know when I need it to come up. So, good morning. My name is Francesca Smith. I am a principal architectural historian and a former member of the Glendale Design Review Board. I wanted to take a minute to explain why this variance cannot be approved and should not rely on the Sappho's environmental report's flawed conclusions. Although many city departments reviewed the application, one notably not mentioned was historic preservation, which should be pivotal to its CEQA exemption. Whether or not an exemption can be used depends on whether or not the property is a historical resource. That remains unknown. The report misstates the local architect's significance in spite of context that was established by the city, showing Charles Walton's importance in the South Glendale historic context. The report exaggerates alterations made to the property without records or providing clear evidence of those changes. There are no photographs provided of full elevations. No research was performed on the lives of previous owners, which is blamed on COVID. However, COVID didn't close the internet. The first owner was a well-respected regional archaeologist whose work archaeological frameworks are still used in Latin America and the southwestern region. That important aspect of its associate significance was not addressed, and I can briefly describe some reasons why. This report presents an ethical dilemma for the city. It would be relying on a flawed evaluation prepared by a current employee who is a former consultant. The evaluation has not been reviewed by the Historic Preservation senior staff member, which presents a serious problem. At the time the report was prepared, Sappho's preparer had recently completed a historic preservation program, but did not possess the requisite 2 years of full-time work in historic preservation. If you could pull up the slide, please.
I can see it. Unfortunately, I cannot pull it up.
Show it?
Yeah.
Okay, I will continue, thanks. Part of my responsibilities at work include reviewing professional qualifications in this field for the state of California. The preparer's credentials were misrepresented by Sappho in the resume that's attached to the report that is Exhibit 6. When the report was prepared in 2020, that consultant did not meet and certainly did not exceed Secretary of the Interior's professional qualification standards in history or architectural history, as claimed on page 17. She did not have 2 years of experience in the field. She was a retail employee until she was hired by Sappho less than a year before the report was completed. The 2 reports she names as her background can't be located. So unfortunately, through no fault of that person, Sappho is ultimately responsible for the exaggerations and errors identified. My main concern is with the city's reliance on that evaluation for its decision regarding this property's historic status. The city has recently seen fit to challenge my credibility and the bias of historic preservation professionals who provide expert opinion voluntarily. It's absurd to suggest that consultants paid by a property owner or developer would somehow be more trustworthy and less biased than qualified volunteers who have no financial interest in the outcome of an evaluation. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you, Ms. Smith. We do have what you sent over. Unfortunately, I couldn't move it onto the screen, but I'll make sure the hearing officer has that.
Thanks very much.
Next speaker.
Ms. Morrissey, you are on the air with the planning hearing officer. Can you hear me? Ms. Morrissey? Okay, I'm going to put you on hold. Oh, wait. I see you've called again. Let me drop this. Ms. Morrissey, are you on the, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, you're on the air with the planning hearing officer. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Claire Morrissey. I live a few doors down from the proposed development, and I just want to say that I do walk my dog up the street every morning, and it's always kind of perilous when you get to that area, and, you know, because if there's cars parked around there, then I have to walk in the middle of the street, and already there's no sidewalk on the lower part of the road. And yeah, I just want to call to say that I'm concerned about adding so much square footage because that tends to bring people, and which bring cars, and we already have too many parked cars in that area. So I would be concerned about granting that variance for for that reason. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hello? Reedy Hungren? Know anybody? Reedy Hungren? Oh, okay, okay. Well, yeah, it didn't come through. Okay, so I'm gonna try Ms. Parker one more time. Ms. Parker, you are on the air with the planning hearing officer. Can you hear me? No, I don't hear anything. Okay. So we are all done with our phone calls?
Okay. Mr. Hafner, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you wish to rebut. And I also have a couple of questions to ask you once you're done with your rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Bakhtikian. Just in response to the last caller, Sophos is a consultant that came off of a list provided by the City of Glendale that I was told came from the Glendale Historical Society as a list of approved consultants. So I don't know, I can't comment on the rest of what she said. The other thing that I'd say two other things. One is that Ms. Solano has said, as she said in the last hearing, that I constructed structures without permits. She claimed 5 separate indigenous tree violations. These things, I mean, the city's forestry department conducted a 6-month investigation following the first hearing into those indigenous tree violation allegations and found that none of them, there were no violations. She said that there was construction of structures in a non-permitted way. It's also not correct. All of the structures are permitted, and actually the only construction that has happened is for a perimeter wall that was part of a previously issued permit. And then finally, I'd say to those that have expressed concerns about parking, I went to some length to show that the parking on the southern part of St. Gregory is only lightly used. And the 2 people who live there across the street with limited parking because they have short driveways, both agreed that there is never any problem with parking on that part of St. Gregory. The part that has parking on both sides of the street and sidewalks, both of those people have attested in writing that parking availability is not an issue on that part of St. Gregory. That concludes the response to the other comments.
Thank you, Mr. Hafner. I have a couple of questions, if I may.
Of course.
Roger, can we go to the photographs that you had earlier in your presentation?
Sure. Let's see. Yes. Okay.
We closed the public hearing, though.
Okay.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Let's hear the caller,
Okay.
and then after that will be it.
Okay. Let me also, before we do that, let me see if I can pull up the PowerPoint because we had some issues.
Okay. By the way, the screens in front of us aren't displaying the same thing as the other screens.
Okay, so I've got my PowerPoint up. Do you want me to?
Let's hear the caller,
Okay.
and then we'll take it from there.
Hello, you are on the air with the planning hearing officer. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. I've been reconnected. Thank you
Sure.
very much.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. My name is Suzanne Reedy Hogren. I'm a member of the Reedy family that has resided for 4 decades on 2974 St. Gregory Road. I respectfully request a denial of both variances. My main concern is for the safety of my own family and the families on St. Gregory Road and on Hollywell. I would like to reiterate what the senior gentleman who lived on Hollywell shared. I saw the distress in his face and in his voice. One thing I would like to say is that anyone who visits our street would see how narrow it is in the area of 2960 St. Gregory Road. It really is immaterial that there is an open spot way up at the top of the street. What we're all concerned about is that narrow place around 2960 St. Gregory Road. When my elderly parents still lived there, I went out and bought a sign that said Hill Blocks View, hidden driveway ahead, because it was so many times we were basically almost hit coming down the road. And when there were cars parked on the one side of the street, it made it even more dangerous because people were trying to hug the other side of the street and come around the street. So the city finally, on their own, took down my signs that I bought and put up their own signs to make that point clear to everyone that there's a hidden driveway right below that property and that it's dangerous and people should slow down. And that just adds to the fact that if you have a lot of other people coming to a very large extended property, grossly expanded property, I might say, in our opinion, and then you have more cars parked on the street, more blockage of emergency vehicles, and more danger to my family and the people that are right below. I know I only have 3 minutes. I would just like to say that I would just like to thank you that already there has been some findings towards denying, especially parking variances. As my sister alluded to, there's no time to go into some of the other harm that has been done to flora and fauna and humans in the years, in the last 20 years. But I will say there is an attitude that some people may have that I can do whatever I want and damn the consequences. But you guys have a wonderful opportunity right now to look at the whole picture of this neighborhood and what the people there deserve, which is safety and peace. So I really appreciate you taking all these comments into consideration. There is one person's view, one homeowner that wants to do what they want to do, and then there's the whole neighborhood as an aggregate that's saying, please, they're pleading with you, please put a stop to this runaway construction. Thank you so much for your time and for your listening ears.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Holgren. So we're not going to take any more callers at this point, and I have a couple of questions of Mr. Hafner.
Sorry. You wanted to see a picture?
Yeah. What I see on the screen, can we go to slide number 15 since that's visible? Okay. Regarding this slide, if I understand correctly, one of the variance items to encroach into the setback is on the left side of this volume, which is encroaching into the 5-foot setback. Am I correct? This is the area that we were talking about regarding the setback variance?
Yeah, the setback variance, about roughly half of this facade that you're seeing here.
Encroaches at an angle.
Correct.
Yeah. So my question to Mr. Hafner is the following. Looking at the proposed plans, I see a deck over this encroachment, which would imply building parapet walls and so on. I was wondering what your thoughts were in terms of extending the encroachment higher instead of stepping the deck back to provide a 5-foot setback or larger?
Yeah, the planned addition is outside of the 5-foot setback, does not encroach in the 5-foot setback.
So the second story, the deck that's going to go on top of this volume would be outside of the 5-foot setback?
That's correct.
Okay. And the second question is, can we move on to the slide that shows the face of the garage together with the adjacent staircase? Do we have a slide that shows more of the staircase? This is what
Yeah, not
I'm sorry.
really. The staircase is right here. You
Right.
can't see the stairs.
If we can go back to the previous slide that showed, okay, on the right side of this photo, there is a wooden structure. Is that a gate or the stairs going up?
Yes, that's a gate.
That's a gate. So pretty much it goes up the entire level of the garage.
That's right.
If I remember correctly, one of the slides you showed, it was a plan view. You indicated that that area of the stairs provides access to the front door of the garage of the house, but there's probably enough of a width or a separation that the garage could possibly be enlarged towards the stairs and another staircase added, built without having to modify the front entrance of the house. And I'm not sure if I'm correct in this assessment or not. So that's the question I would have. If there's any possibility to expand the garage towards the right of as seen in this picture.
Expanding the garage towards the right would require several things that Roger and I went over. So not just demoing the existing staircase, not just building underneath the existing deck and underneath the existing house, but it would require changing the entrance to the house, because remember, from this part of the house, the driveway slopes down. If you try to move the entrance over to the right, now the stairs have to go up another 5 or 6 feet. It requires then, I don't know, trying to figure out how to terrace back and forth. And again, then you're trying to get up to a level where you have to get around the house in order to get to the front door. Expanding the garage in this direction to demo the stairs, because it would have to go into the house, because the entrance, there's no solution to the entrance, it's more feasible to demo the pool and to lose the protected trees on the back side and to expand the garage that way. That's actually the most feasible way to do it than demoing the entrance.
Okay, so if I understand, the existing configuration and the topography would preclude any expansion to the right.
To the right, yes.
Towards the house.
The only, I mean, for my structural engineer, the thing that could be done is to demo the pool.
Okay. All right. So we've heard everything. The public hearing is closed.
You have no more questions for me, Mr.
No more questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the public hearing is closed. We'll take the case under submission, and then we'll render a decision. The decision will be posted on the city's website and also sent to whoever spoke and provided a speaker card or called in. So the hearing is closed. We are adjourned.